ATPF families, I'm Katriel and I am an intern with ATPF. Today I'm going to be talking about the series Life Lessons with Katriel and continuing in the second video of the series Friendships. Today the topic of the video is negative qualities you should avoid in your friendships. So I'm going to list a bunch of negative qualities and just try and explain why they're negative. Some traits in toxic friendships are not being willing to forgive. It is important when you are in a situation where you're having a hard time forgiving someone to talk through things. As long as the person's not being abusive, and if the person's being abusive, it's important to talk to trustworthy adults. You should avoid mean friends. You should avoid gossiping and try not to participate in gossiping. Selfishness. You should share your cookies if you ever have cookies. You don't always have to share your cookies, but don't always keep the bag of cookies to yourself. Just make sure to share some cookies sometimes. Anyways, basically being selfish is not just about cookies, but it's also about putting others above yourself, or at least at the level of yourself, and sometimes above yourself. And then another bad thing is your friend being embarrassed by or ashamed of you. You should just avoid those friends. They're not real friends. And yeah, you should try and talk it out maybe, but I'd say talk to trustworthy adults first, and then you can try and talk it out. Honestly, it's probably not going to go much of anywhere. If they're already feeling that way, they're probably already not really invested in you and they don't really like you. So it's just not going to go anywhere, but you can try and talk it out if you want to. Lack of respect for boundaries, that's bad, but you should try and talk it out, especially if somebody has a really hard time disrespecting boundaries in general. Not just if they're only disrespecting your boundaries, but they're having problems with respecting other people's boundaries. But if they're still having a really hard time, you should talk to some trustworthy adults. And then if the trustworthy adults say, I don't think you should be friends with that person, you should listen to the trustworthy adults. Your friend not being willing to keep your secrets, that's bad. You need to be able to keep secrets. Keep secrets, unless keeping their secrets is gonna hurt someone or hurt themselves. Your friend not caring about you is not good, and that kind of goes back to your friend being embarrassed by or ashamed of you. It's just kind of pointless, but you can try and talk it through if you want to. Your friend always being the center of attention. It's okay if your friend is the center of attention, sometimes their birthday, or they got a promotion and they are the center of attention for that reason. But if they're the center of attention all the time, just in normal situations, when you're having a normal conversation, that's a normal day. In general, I'd say hey, I would appreciate it if you could take turns having a conversation. That's really important, by the way, to take turns having a conversation. That's just really important for keeping friendships alive and getting friends and all that stuff. So try and keep a two-way conversation going, which means you talk a little bit about yourself, but ask them a few questions about themselves, and then they talk a little bit, and then hopefully they ask you some questions about themselves. But if they don't ask you questions back, they probably don't want to talk to you, so just stop talking to them. So unless they're on a huge story, and then you should listen to their story. And then maybe you can tell a huge story about yourself. I found these negative qualities of friendships in the YouTube video that there's a picture of in this video. 9 Ways to Tell If Your Friends Are Trash by Kristen Newton. The video basically talks about ways to figure out if your friends are trash, certain behaviors they do, tell you are they treating you well or are they not treating you well. I'm giving this lesson because I have had a lot of negative friendships in my life, and I have been a negative friend in my life. It's just important to really try and be a good friend and to have good friendships in order to have a good mindset, a healthy style of life. The main point of this lesson is try and be a good friend, avoid negative friends, and make sure to talk to trusted adults. And just be aware of these things too, and don't just ignore them. And don't think that if this happens that it'll never happen again, because that's not always the case. Many times if your friend's doing a toxic behavior, they will do the toxic behavior again. So be aware of that and talk to them about it before it becomes so annoying that you just drop them. And then the question for today is, what are some negative qualities you want to avoid in friendships? All right, thank you for watching, and goodbye.